What's going on, dude? How are you?
Well, I woke up this morning and I wasn't the Jets general manager, so I realized I was having a good day.
So you got that going for you, which is nice. In fact, why don't we get right to it, Charles, cutting right to the chase. Just how bad of a loss was that win for the New York Jets yesterday?
I mean, it changes potentially a decade of the franchise, maybe longer. I don't think I can underscore how important the Jets felt like Trevor Lawrence could be to the future of that franchise. Like right through the general manager, right to the owner. I think everybody knew that going through the pain of this season, the payoff would be immense if Lawrence was the guy. Their evaluation on him is through the roof. They think he's far and away the best quarterback in the draft. They think the space between he and the next quarterback in the draft is like I said, immense. And to lose that in a late season game that ultimately in the bigger picture is going to be meaningless in terms of hirings and firings. I mean, the coaching staff's going regardless. I feel good for the players. I feel good for the coaching staff because these are still men who set out to win games and have some pride, and nobody wants to have 0-16 stuck on them. But that's the weird dichotomy of NFL teams, that you have front offices that know they have to think about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out, and you have coaching staffs and players who have to think about that day, and they don't care if one day ruins 10 or 15 years.
I think that's extremely well put. I mean, not only do they not care if one day ruins 10 or 15 years, let's be more specific. How do you think Adam Gase is feeling right about now, knowing that he's not going to be there next year and that he just did what he did to them?
Knowing Adam Gase's personality, he's psyched. Like there's no question in my mind that Adam Gase is sitting there knowing that in a way he just kind of flipped the bird to everybody in the organization that he feels like doesn't support him or hasn't had his back over the last, 12 months or really since Mike McCagnon went out the door. It's been rough. It's been difficult for Adam with the New York media. They've caught him in press conferences at times where it didn't look like he was being truthful. I don't think he's handled everything, the best way he could. I think ownership knows that. I think the front office knows that. And there's been, some friction there, just a difficult situation going through this season with Adam knowing that he was going out the door. So to win a game like this and, know it alters sort of these grand underlying plans that were in place after you get to 0-10, 0-11, 0-12, and the franchise kind of knows what's sitting there for it. Look, I think Gase is a spiteful guy. I do. I think it's part of what drives him at times, and I'm sure he's happy that he was able to stick it to maybe people who he felt like weren't there for him.
We're talking to Charles Robinson. All right, so the Cleveland Browns win their 10th game of the season last night. They would be the first to tell you that that's not the goal. But what's it say about Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski that they are in this spot, that they're in this spot during a pandemic season?
If you're an NFL fan, you should be a Browns fan. If there's not a reason for you to root against the Browns, you should be rooting for the Browns, because this is a story about a franchise that, the fan base just gets used to a litany of mistakes. You're always hiring the wrong person. It's the wrong quarterback. It's the wrong draft pick. And this should tell every NFL fan that if you get the right general manager in place, you get the right coach in place, and you get the right structure in place so people aren't warring against each other in the franchise, you can build a team pretty quickly if there's some talent on the roster. And I think Andrew Berry probably, if he's not executive of the year at this point, I mean, I don't know who else you stick in that situation. I mean, you're talking about not only an African-American general manager, which is a rarity in the NFL, but the youngest general manager in the history of the league, had one of the greatest off seasons this year, has turned around a franchise and revitalized, a participant in an AFC North division that just makes that arguably the most brutal division, moving forward into the future. So I think it's great for everybody. Baker Mayfield looks good. Browns fans, I hope, are enjoying this because it's really hard. I tweeted, it's really hard to win 10 games in the NFL, but to do it in a pandemic season is just beyond a great, I guess, badge of honor, and we'll see where it goes from here.
I love them. I've been banging that drum for quite some time. To me, they're America's team. I think it's amazing what they're accomplishing. I love it, and I agree with you. It's so good for the NFL. Charles Robinson is joining us. Let me ask you about Jalen Hurts. Now, when after his first start, you wrote that he looked like the quarterback of the future, and then folks were coming for you saying, come on, man, it's only one game, take it easy.
Right.
And then we saw what he did yesterday. What do you make of the way he's looked so far, and then what does that mean to Carson Wentz?
Well, he represents where a lot of the league is going. I think that the thing that's interesting about the league now is when you talk to teams, they're definitely looking for off-script guys, people who are not necessarily running quarterbacks, but can be quarterbacks that can think on their feet, can move around and manipulate defenses by not necessarily standing in the pocket. I think, interestingly enough, we went through this era forever where it was like you're trying to find that statue, stand in the pocket, 6'5" guy. I don't think teams are looking for that anymore. Great. If he's 6'5", if he's Justin Herbert, that's awesome. But guess what? Justin Herbert can run, and he's got a gun, and he can sling it. And, Pat Mahomes is a big guy, but he can move around and manipulate things. And then you have, Kyler Murray, Hurts, you have Tua, guys who are on the shorter side, but again, are think on their feet type of guys, can go off script and basically break defenses. And if you go back and you watch that game yesterday, at one point, Jalen Hurts, gets the ball knocked out of his hand. It's a fumble. And I'm screaming at my TV, just dive on it, dive on it. And he's literally dribbling the ball out, trying to pick it up. And then he throws a comeback completion to a tight end that was one of the greatest plays I've seen this year. And you just don't see quarterbacks with the ability to do that. I think he's got something that Philadelphia should be excited about. Now, granted, if you watch the game closely, there were a couple of times where he got lucky. There was some turnover luck where the defense didn't always play some of his mistakes perfectly. But again, for two starts, I think it's really lit a fire under that offense and provided some possibility moving forward. Now they really do, I think, have a question now with Carson Wentz, what they're going to do with him. And if the second the season ends, if they don't call the Indianapolis Colts and talk to Frank Reich and see if they're interested, they're out of their mind.
Right. Charles Robinson is joining us. Listen, really quickly before I let you go, you've got a piece up on Yahoo about the Patriots, and they're not going to the postseason and will not have a winning record for the first time in 20 years. Bill Belichick has never selected a quarterback in the first round in his 26 years as a head coach. How do you think that he's going to approach this process?
Well, I hope he changes. It's remarkable to go more than a quarter of a century as a head coach and, as you said, take part in 26 NFL drafts and never take a first rounder. Now, they cashed a lottery ticket in Tom Brady, obviously, in 2000. You go 19 years with that guy, and that really, 20 years with that guy, and that really helps, not having to make that decision. But I think it's time. You can see the Patriots need to do a rebuild that's going to be not a micro rebuild. It's going to be a couple years, 2-3 year rebuild. And I think most NFL teams now that are looking at that they're just like, look, we really have to start with the quarterback. We can't go get somebody else's guy that they don't want anymore. We can't, sign a free agent. And if the guy's not on a roster, we need to go get special. That's what teams talk about now. That's why Josh Rosen got traded a year after getting drafted with the 10th overall pick. That's why Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles, see something these last two games and they want to flush a $30 million quarterback. It's because when you see special, you have to seize upon it. No more Ryan Mallett's, no more Jacoby Brissett's. I don't even think Jimmy G would fit the bill. You got to go get a guy. If they see a guy this year in the first round, they're going to be at least 4 quarterbacks that go in the first round this year. If one of those guys, maybe 5, if one of those guys fits the bill for Bill Belichick and the Patriots for a decade build, that's the guy you got to go get. And if you have to surrender assets, it's time to do it. He has to break this streak of no first-round quarterback.